What is up, everyone? Welcome into another edition of our MLB DFS DraftKings Picks videos, this time for Wednesday, August 18th. We have continued the switch because Ben hates hosting duties, and you guys did not give me any thumbs down. I feel like that's a precursor to someone hitting us with a thumbs down today to get Ben back to the host. But before we start, we have a nice 10-game slate. As always, you can check out all of our content at dfskarma.com, betkarma.com. We have a lot of great tools for you to check out. You can find our core plays at dfskarma.com. You can also go to chatdfs.com and get into our free Discord where we're basically talking sports all day, every day. I know that is a lot of links, but you can go to the bottom of the description, click to show more, and you can find all of our links there. As always, if you enjoy our content, please go ahead and give us a thumbs up. We're still pushing for the 50, which Ben has constantly said that's the target goal. Once we get that, we'll stop bugging you guys for it. You can also click subscribe, hit the little bell notification to get all of our videos sent to you when they get posted, which, I believe is a very good thing, especially with NFL coming up. Now that all of that is out of the way, Ben, how are you doing today?
I'm gonna be doing better if people like the video and join the Discord. It'll be a really good day if that happens. But yeah, this is 10-game slate. Not as crazy as yesterday's huge 15-gamer. I think pitching is interesting, but yeah, I'm just ready, man. We got preseason football Thursday night showdown. I think there's one game, so I will have some notes and some core plays for that showdown slate if you guys want some action there. But yeah, I'm just ready to get to the slate.
Yeah, I think that's another important thing to quick mention is that we do have an NFL preseason package. You can pick that up on the website as well. Ben and I give out cores. Even for like the showdown, we absolutely dominated the Hall of Fame game. Ben did really well last week while I was on vacation, and I had a little bit of success, although I didn't play nearly as much as, Ben. Also, if you guys don't know about the app Jock Market, it is more or less a stock market meets DFS. It is a great app. If you download it, use promo code KARMA when making a deposit, you get 100% match bonus up to $50. Highly recommend that and get into our Discord because everything for Jock Market is free at the moment. Literally all of it. Last night, right before lock, I posted that Nelson Cruz was way too cheap. He ended up scoring the most fantasy points of anyone on the slate, and you 5 times your money, whatever you spent on him. I guess they are doing a contest for preseason as well, which we're going to be looking at whenever they are posted and everything. So all of that is completely free when you're in our Discord. Just go ahead and sign up for Jock Market. Get the app, use promo code KARMA when depositing, and you get yourself 100% match bonus on that deposit. On to this slate. I feel like pitcher is it's open, I would say, because there are so many good options. But for me, last night I said there were only 3 guys that I was considering. Tonight there's more, but there's 3 guys that I feel sit above everyone else. So I'm interested to hear where you're looking at in cash and tournaments, and then I'll kind of break down what I'm thinking here.
Yeah, no, I pretty much agree. It's pretty open today at pitcher. If you look at just the top 5 or 6 guys over the last month, we're at the point in the season where I'd like to isolate numbers. For batters, I like to look at the last 2 weeks, at least in terms of how they're making contact with the ball. And for pitchers, I'll isolate to the last month. Over the last month, all these guys are pretty similar. They're all pretty much mid-threes, skill interactive ERA. Peralta has the highest strikeout rate at 31%. Then you have Morton, 29%. Everyone else is pretty much mid-20s. So there's no separator. Like the last couple slates, we had Garrett Cole on Monday. It was very clear he was the best option, right? Yesterday we had Corbin Burns. Very clear he was the best option. Today, all these guys are kind of grouped together. I do think Freddie Peralta is the best option today just because of his matchup. So since these guys all have similar numbers, I will be weighing matchup a little bit more heavily than I normally do. Peralta, 40% strikeouts on the season against right-handed hitters. He's probably going to see 6 of them in the Cardinals lineup. So I do think that gives him an edge, and he's not that much more expensive than anyone else. After him, I think it's Charlie Morton and Shohei Ohtani. Morton's been really good all season for the Braves. Like I said, second highest strikeout rate on the slate over the last month of action. Good matchup against Miami. On the season, their projected Marlins lineup, 26% strikeout rate. So I like Morton, and then Ohtani is Ohtani, right? Like, you can use him any slate. He's been really good for the majority of the season. He's trimmed his walks down. Detroit, again, their projected lineup for the season, sub 300 WOBA as a team, 26% strikeout rate. It's a good matchup. So I do think that's probably the top 3 for me today, but I do think it's pretty open, and you can consider a lot of these guys.
Yeah, you basically outlined it perfectly. Those are the 3 that I'm looking at. I think that they're in, 3 of more or less the better matchups on the slate. I know that it's not, I guess we're not at the point anymore where you see Detroit and then you plug the pitcher in against them. Detroit's offense actually isn't that bad. With that said, over the last 2 weeks, they have a team WOBA under 3. Their strikeout rate is the second highest on the slate behind only the Marlins. I agree, Freddie Peralta. The only thing that I was slightly hesitant about was that St. Louis's offense has been playing well and they haven't been striking out. And then, we had like Corbin Burns last night, who was in the same ideal matchup and ended 6 innings, 3 strikeouts, which I think is more of an outlier versus what we would expect from someone like Freddie Peralta, who also has the strikeout capabilities. But it is something to kind of note, just because, like you said, they're all very similar in terms of their pitching talent. I feel like Charlie Morton's probably my one. Charlie Morton's the guy that I more or less want to lock in, and then I'm picking between Peralta and Ohtani for my 2. Right now, slightly in Peralta, then Ohtani. Other guys at the top that can be used, Lance Lynn, Jack Flaherty, both of them very good options. I have no problems whatsoever. I think you can use anyone above Ohtani, except for I wouldn't play Nick Pivetta, just because I personally won't be paying $9,000 for a guy like Nick Pivetta, especially in a matchup against New York, who obviously do have a lot of power in a hitter-friendly stadium. I think the important thing for this slate is that I probably want to use 2 guys of that top tier, though. I think the lowest I really want to go is Shohei Ohtani. And that doesn't mean that I don't think that there aren't other guys, because I do. Just depending on if we get any news on like his pitch count or anything. Mitch White at 6,000, I think, is way too cheap against Brubaker. It's just I don't really want to play him if he's only going to throw 60 pitches. And then you have a guy like Ranger Suarez, who all his advanced metrics look really good. He gets a plus matchup against Arizona, although I don't love that he's throwing in Arizona. But his pitches are finally up. He's only 5,700, so I also think that that's at least a reasonable play. And then I don't know. If you want to use a guy like Marco Gonzalez because of the matchup, that's fine, but it just doesn't make that much sense to me to drop all the way down there when Ohtani's only 1,000 more. And I would basically do whatever it takes to get Ohtani over Gonzalez. I don't know if you feel different about like any of the other guys that are much cheaper on the slate.
Yeah, no, Gonzalez does not make my pool personally. Advanced stuff on him over the last 3 weeks really isn't that great, so I'll just pass on him. Even guys like Flaherty and Lynn, I think those guys are fine. You can use them. I'm sure they're going to project fairly well, but if you look at them like compared to Peralta, Morton, and Ohtani, I just don't have interest in playing them, and all the prices are pretty similar. So someone like Lynn and Flaherty for me get cut on this slate. I don't have just because I don't play enough lineups to get to those guys, right? I don't have a problem with them if you want to play them, or if you have conviction with one of those guys you want to play them. Don't let me talk you off them. But for me personally, it's those 3 that we talked about, and that's about it. You kind of nailed it though for cheaper guys. Like, it probably is Suarez. I had Mitch White highlighted. I do think the 60 pitches or whatever is a concern, but he's so cheap that it probably doesn't matter. Like, if you're playing a cheap pitcher like him, to stack an expensive stack, like I don't think it's going to matter if he throws 65 pitches. He has had a 26% strikeout rate in from the time that we've seen from him. So that's decent. So I'm not worried about the pitch count as well. And I think Suarez is fine in tournaments as well. Like those guys aren't people I would consider in like your main lineup. But if you just want to get different and you want to get some expensive bats in, I don't mind that at all.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel. That's also how I feel with guys like Lance Lynn and Jack Flaherty. Like my first tier is Peralta, Morton, and Ohtani, and then I think it's a pretty big dip to guys like Flaherty and Lynn. But if you want to use them in like tournaments, I'm not really going to try to talk you off of it or anything. We can move to stacks now. Where are you looking at in cash? Because I feel like it's relatively obvious that the top two stacks are going to be Tampa Bay and the Dodgers tonight. Do you feel different from that, or do you think that those two are just going to be the chalky options and people are going to do what they have to do to get them in? And where else are you looking?
Yeah, I'm not sure. First glance, this was a slate where I wasn't like this feels like a slate I don't need to stack in cash games. Like I think I'll be fine just running a lineup that I feel comfortable with. But I don't know. The Rays have been in really good spots the last two nights. They've obviously like went off and they've been in tournament winning lineups, but even last night they just weren't really that high owned as a full stack. I don't know. People don't really like to play them for whatever reason. So I'm not sure. I don't have any read on ownership at the moment. They do have that huge team total. I mean, Baltimore's bullpen has just been so bad. It's tough not to consider them number one on the slate. Agreed, Dodgers are always there, right? But that's another team that's expensive, and it just feels like they're never really chalky in terms of like a full stack, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels like people would like one off them. Like last night, I stacked Tampa Bay. That was who I went with. Obviously, worked out great with Nelson Cruz. Zunino hit the home run that we called on here.
Called it on the pod.
Yep, that's why it pays to watch. But they were owned at roughly like I think the highest might have been Cruz at like 15%, but I think I had three of the five were like under 5% or something crazy. And I mean, obviously the matchup was fine against John Means. It's not like he's the worst pitcher in the world, but he's also not overly good. So I don't know. I think to me, it feels like the Dodgers and Tampa Bay players should get some ownership, but
yeah, I think Cruz so is going to get ownership, right? Obviously, he hit 2 home runs last night. Mm-hmm. He'll get ownership, but I'm not sure, like in terms of like full stack, if like a really
whole 5-man. Yeah, I agree with that. I think the stack that really sticks out to me at this point, and I mean, if you guys have been watching us the entire season, you know I'm about to say the Seattle Mariners. I have attacked Mike Fulton-Newix basically every single time he's thrown this season. He's not been good. He gives up a ton of home runs. It's not like I'm worried about Texas's bullpen. That's also, more or less one of the worst in the MLB. So I think that Seattle, even though they're struggling, they're in a very interesting spot. Outside of that, I have no problems with Philly. I don't really care who Arizona throws out. I think that Philly's in a good spot. You can play like Houston. And I think, I guess I would also go with Atlanta just because Luzardo, has been very bad. His advanced metrics don't look good. Similar to Fulton-Newich, he's giving up a ridiculous amount of home runs. I think both of their home run per nine sit at like 2.4 on the season, which is just absolutely crazy. So I do think that there's a lot of merit to playing Atlanta, especially now that they have a few more dominant right-handed bats that they traded for at the deadline with Acuna and Ozuna both out. So I think Atlanta is interesting. I think they could go a bit under-owned because obviously they're playing in Miami. But is there anyone else that you're looking at here?
Yeah, I had 3 that I had highlighted outside of Tampa, and that was Houston, Atlanta, and Boston. So agree, Singer has been far and away, at least over the last 30 days, worst pitcher on the slate. I mean, his Sierra's like well over, I think it was over 6 the last time I checked. More walks than strikeouts. Like he's just been really bad. But he's also not terrible against righties, and there's only probably going to be 2 or 3 lefties in the Astros lineup. So that kind of takes some of the appeal away for me, but I have to consider them a top stack with how he's been throwing. Definitely Atlanta with how Luzardo's been throwing really bad, walks a lot of guys. So that's a good spot for just the full stack, I think, to just load them up. And then Haney, I mean, this guy gives up home runs every slate. We know he 250 ISO allowed to righties. Like, we know he's going to give up power. Obviously, Boston has some right-handed bats with power. JD Martinez, Xander Bogaerts, Renfroe, Kike Hernandez. Like, I have to consider them. I mean, every slate, even if he gets strikeouts, he's giving up runs every single time he starts.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think Boston's a really good stack tonight as well. I think we can move on to position by position, though. Starting at catcher, I want to hear where you're going with this, because I feel like there's kind of 2 guys that really stick out to me, maybe potentially 3 or 4 if you want to add a second punt. But I want to hear where you're going at catcher tonight.
I think if you're spending up, Will Smith, he's been really good over the last 2 weeks, batted ball wise. Obviously, you kind of pointed out our interest in the Dodgers, so I think if you're spending up, you have to look at him. Mike Zunino, your boy, I don't want to steal the shine from you, but I mean, Watkins has actually been much worse to righties. Over a 350 WOBA allowed, over 200 ISO allowed to righties. The bullpen's bad. He's still mid-priced, so I think Zunino. And then for cheap, Cal Raleigh from the Mariners, if he is in the lineup, I think is probably the top punt.
Yeah, so you basically outlined what I was going
good?
with. It was, Will Smith was my number 1. I didn't have Zunino. I just kind of like playing him against left-handed pitcher more. And I know that Watkins is bad against righties, but I feel like I favor Zunino's success against lefties versus Watkins' struggles against the righties. But no problems with that. The other expensive guy I had besides Will Smith was JT Realmuto. Obviously, we're not 100% sure who's throwing for Arizona tonight, but again, I don't really think that it matters that much. Then if you're spending down, the number 1 option for me is going to be Cal Raleigh. I think that, just a great spot, way too cheap against a guy like Fulton Newich. And then also, I believe you can use a guy like Kevin Plawecki, assuming he's starting. A lot more power against left-handed pitching, and obviously gets the matchup against Andrew Heaney. But I believe those 4 will probably end up being my pool with, if I spend up, it's Will Smith. If I spend down, it's Cal Raleigh. And then, the other 2 are just kind of there for like tournaments if you want to move off of guys that should be a little chalkier.
Yeah. You got to go first at first, because I stole everyone at catcher. So.
All right. First base. So last night I was all over Max Muncy, and I couldn't fit him into my lineups, thankfully, because their lineup came up after lock and Muncy did not play. So he's back to first and second base eligible, because DraftKings, does these weird things where they just change people's positions for one night.
Every day.
Yeah, but Muncy, I believe, is the top option if you're spending up. I think he's in an elite spot. If you want kind of more in the mid-tier, I think that there's merit to playing a guy like Ty France, but I would assume that Ji-Man Choi is probably the chalkier option, just because where he's going to be hitting in Tampa Bay's lineup obviously gets the matchup against Spencer Watkins. And then I know you gave it out early, which means fair game on the pod. Home run call tonight is Bobby Dalbeck, and nice. I only feel slightly less confident in him as I did Mike Zunino last night. So it feels like a real good spot, but 3,100, Bobby Dalbeck. Most people probably don't really follow him that much and don't really know what's been happening. But over his last 10 games, he's hitting almost 450 with a ton of power. He never gets owned. He literally goes under owned, and his price never shoots up. And I'm assuming it's solely because he hits towards the end of Boston's lineup. And I don't know, he's just way too cheap.
Yeah, Bobby Dalbeck was my number 1 first base play that I had circled, so I'm glad that you're on the same page there. Yeah, he's projected to bat 9th, so people won't play him. But yeah, love him at that price. Ji-Man Choi, I think, will definitely be popular. I think you covered that well. And I like Freeman lefty on lefty. He's under 5K. fits with the Brave stack, but you can one-off him as well. But he's always been good lefty-lefty, and people just don't play him because of that matchup. But
yeah, I actually like that call, especially because when you look over like his last 10 games, it's nothing really overly spectacular. But if you break it down over his last 4, he's averaging like slightly under 20 fantasy points per game. He's actually just really, really heating up, which a lot of the Atlanta offense is. So I do think that that's a really good call. At second base, for me, this is a spend up position. I'll let you start here, though. I don't want to steal too many of the top guys, but I feel like I know where you're going here.
yeah, no, I 100% agree. First base, very clear. You can spend down with Choi and Dalbeck being there. I think those are the top plays there. Second base is different. I think it's Brandon Lau, Kike Hernandez, or Ozzy Albies. Like, that's far and away my favorite 3. I think you can, like, you could use Trey Turner or something like that from the Dodgers if you want to as well. But Brandon Lau, Kike are probably my 2 favorites.
Yeah, my 2 favorites are Lau and Albies, so we're more or less on the same page there. I can add Kike into that as well. Really good play. I also believe if you wanted to spend up and play like Trey Turner or Jose Altuve, feel free. But Lau's such a better play, in my opinion, that you don't really need to go above the 53 to get to him. The only other option that I would say, just so we can kind of get someone at least slightly cheaper in here, Abraham Toro at 4,100. He's going to hit 5th in Seattle's lineup, gets the matchup against Mike Fulton-Lewis, which obviously we love. And realistically, not many people are going to play him. So I do believe that he's a player that can be added, in a tier below Lau, Albies, and we can throw Kike in there too, just because you're big on him tonight.
Yeah, Abe Toro's a good play. I like that for sure.
Yeah, especially because, man, since they traded him, he's just been on fire. He just doesn't really stop. At third base, I want to say that the top option for me is going to be pretty easily Kyle Seager. Love his power, gets a matchup against a guy that gives up a lot of home runs. He's 4,700, which is actually pretty expensive compared to what I kind of thought he was going to be. 100 under him, Austin Riley, way too cheap for a matchup against a bad left-handed pitcher. You have Joey Wendell at 42. If you want to go down a little bit more, Aldomez Diaz is still only 3,400 and obviously gets the matchup against Singer. I think that's probably my pool. That's a decent amount of guys, but Seager and Riley kind of feel like the easy 2 for me at this position.
Yeah, we're on the same page today because I 100% agree that is my top 2 as well. Riley's been on fire. Seager all year has been someone I've been targeting with the 50% hard hit and fly ball rate against righties. Obviously, Fulte gives up home runs, so I do agree those are the top 2. I'll throw in one more cheap guy, Jack Mayfield, someone I've been playing actually the last couple weeks. 50% fly ball rate over the last 14 days. Has sneaky power against lefties, and we know Skubal allows home runs. So I actually think if you are making a lineup and you really like it and you just need a punt, I don't mind Jack Mayfield.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. Moving to shortstop, go ahead. You can get us started on this one.
Yeah, this is another position that you're probably gonna spend up on. It's different than the last 2 slates though, because Monday and Tuesday we were kind of just debating if you want to play Trevor Story, if you want to play Fernando Tatis Jr. That's not the case on the slate because that game isn't on the slate. But I think Xander Bogaerts is probably the top play here against Haney. Last 2 weeks, 48% fly ball rate, 38% hard hit rate. Obviously, he has power against lefties, so I like him. Wander Franco never gets ownership because he's 5K. Like, literally no one plays him. He is better against lefties, but I'm 100% willing to bet on him, especially if you're stacking the Rays. And then I'm sure you'll agree the top mid-tier plays J.P. Crawford, fitting with that Mariners theme.
Yeah, you pretty much outlined exactly what I was thinking. Only guy that I guess I'll add is Didi Gregorius at 33, but I do prefer Crawford for only 200 more. And then I guess if you wanted to add someone like Jose Iglesias, assuming he's hitting kind of in the heart of the Angels order as a one-off against Skubal, I do think that's relatively okay. In the outfield, I think the obvious options here are going to be the Tampa Bay guys. Nelson Cruz coming off a 2 home run game. Austin Meadows obviously performs very well against right-handed pitching, gets the matchup against Watkins, and then Randy Arozarena has been on fire as well recently. The guy that I think that we can add is going to be Kevin Kiermaier, just because he's absurdly cheap at 2,400. No one will play him because he hits near the end of the lineup, but he has been on absolute fire in recent games. I think he's hitting like nearly 350 or something over his last 10. He's shown pretty surprising power for what I personally believed that he had. So any of those four for Tampa Bay, assuming they're starting, makes sense. But I guess we should probably just break this down kind of in the price range. So if you're spending up at outfield, who are you looking at?
Yeah, so I agree. Top plays here are the Tampa Bay guys and the Boston guys. So you have Cruz, Arozarena, and then you have like Renfroe, JD Martinez. Those are the top plays. I like the call on Kiermaier, though. I think you can add like Brett Phillips. First of all, Brett Phillips is like the best player in baseball. Like how you don't love this guy, I have no idea. When he came out and pitched like a month ago,
That was
was
so
incredible. He hits inside the park home runs. Like this guy is electric. So I don't know how you don't love him. But if you're gonna stack the Rays, that's a great way to get leverage, right? Like you play the main guys, you play Brandon Lau, Nelson Cruz, or Rosarena. Throw in like you said, Wendell or Kiermaier or Brett Phillips. Throw one of those guys in with the top of the order guys, and then that's just a way to get a little bit different. So I like that call 100%. But agree, Tampa and Boston probably the top guys. There are some good cheap guys though. Andrew Vaughn against a lefty is still really cheap, so I think you can look at him. Both the Angels guys, Justin Upton and Joe Adele. Adele hit a big grand slam last night.
Yep.
Those guys are both really cheap and obviously have power against lefties. So there's some good cheap guys here as well today.
Yeah, I really agree with that. Adding to the cheaper plays, Jorge Soler is only 3,800, which just feels way too cheap for him. If you want to go down much farther, Jared Kelenic is at 2,600, obviously in a matchup that I love. Outside of that, I mean, there's some other guys that you can play, like Jake Fraley, assuming I guess he's not going to hit early in the lineup. He'll probably hit closer to 8th or 9th, but I still believe that you can use him in tournaments just because the power is there. And then Mitch Haniger at 5,000. I know that's obviously not cheap. Bryce Harper at 6,000. Those are two of my favorite high-priced options that don't play for Boston or Tampa Bay. And then I do believe at 4,500, Joey Gallo just feels way too cheap, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's definitely. I mean, I feel like we've kind of been saying that after like first couple slates that he joined the Yankees, but I do agree with you. And I don't think that whole really in general that team's going to be that owned today. So, despite like a decent matchup.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Before we head out, we need the home run calls. I have obviously stolen the guy that you probably would have gone with in Bobby Dalbeck. So who are you looking for tonight?
Yeah, you definitely stole Bobby Dalbeck. So I'm not even. I was gonna pick Xander, but I don't want to take two Red Sox guys. So I'm gonna mix it up. I'm just gonna take Andrew Vaughn. Absolutely crushes left-handed pitching. He's cheap. So two cheap guys. We gave out two cheap home run calls. You plug those guys in. You can play whatever stack you want, whatever pitchers you want. I think that's a good way to build on the slate.
Yeah, I really like that build as well. So once again, if you go to the description, you can find all of our stuff and the links to them in there. So I would go ahead and recommend to do that. DFSkarma.com if you just want to go directly to the website. You can find our core plays. You can get in our free chat room. Once again, we're giving out free advice for Jock Market. It's an app that basically mixes the stock market and DFS. If you download the app, create an account, deposit with the promo code KARMA, you can get a 100% match bonus up until $50. So I would highly recommend doing that. Getting in the Discord, we'll always talk about it. We have NFL coming up, so you can pick up one of our packages. We have plenty of preseason left. But until then, good luck tonight, everyone.
Like the video, please. like the video.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Give a nice thumbs up too.
all right, good luck tonight, guys. We'll be back on Thursday.